some new software here at This Week in Startups. The new software we're trying is called Restream.io. Never used this product before, but it allows me to live stream to YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn Live at the same time. So, as you know, This Week in Startups is doing 5 shows a week. I am not kidding. Five shows a week. I've always dreamed about having my own daily show. And here we are. Now I have my own daily show. And oh my God, that was a huge mistake. This is a lot of work, folks. It's not a mistake. It's been great. And we thought we'd try something today. As you know, I tape the news every day. What you may or may not know, or you might have guessed, there's a bunch of people behind the production here. And what they do is they prepare probably 6 or 7 stories for me. I pick the 3 that I most want to talk about, and then I will riff on them. They give me a Notion page with a bunch of bullet points and the facts. I read some of those quotes, and then I riff, right? And we typically go and review all this information before the show starts. And then when I mispronounce a name or I stumble, they'll edit it. And when they edit it, I will sound much smarter in the finished product. But we thought maybe it'd be interesting for the super fans to watch me record the news. I don't know. So I am watching people say, hi, there's Chef Lizette. How are you? I love waffles. You're saying I love to waffle, but actually I love waffle. Where is the next All In Pod? We're taping the All In Pod tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow we'll be taping it. So we can do fun stuff like pull up here your questions on the main screen. Thank you for the fresh haircut. I did it because somebody did I can tell when I need to get a haircut because these trolls and haters, mostly on the crypto and Tether side, take a picture of the guy from Better Call Saul, who is an incredible actor. And then but he's got a comb over. And then they take a picture of me with my comb over. Listen, I have a little bit of hair left. I'm trying to enjoy it for the last 10 years of my life. Give me a break, folks. But I did get it cut, and it does stick up a little bit, and it looks less comb over when I do it. But I'm not wearing any makeup. I got the bags under my eyes. I'm working out really hard. I'm losing weight. I'm 20 pounds off my peak weight. I'm going to lose another 10, catch up to Sachs, and then dunk on them because I think – when you're a 50-year-old guy, if you get old, you get some wrinkles, but you have a diesel body, and you got that, I want to get like the, Harrison Ford thing going, I want to just age nicely. No mohawk. Thank you. And it is an Italian tan. Yes. I got a little bit too much sun. So this is really amazing. I can see the Periscope icon from Christopher. And then I see Danny, is saying I have beautiful guitars. I try to play, yes. Young Spielberg in the house on Periscope, which I think is Twitter. Wow, this is a really amazing software. Congratulations to the folks at Restream.io. I have a good camera here. If you want to see my setup, the team, I think, can pull up any web page here. So if I were to ask producer Nick or Charles to pick the Sony, I think I have a Sony digital SLR. If they pull up that page, I can say, pull up a web page, and they'll show it here. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to read 2 news stories that I selected for today for This Week in Startups, because I think I have an interview after. I think they're going to pair these 2 news stories with an interview. So can one of my producers reply on Periscope, LinkedIn, or YouTube so I can see you're in there, and then tell the audience what today's show's going to be paired with. There's This Week in Startups on YouTube saying hi. So I'm going to do 2 news stories, and then the second half of the episode for today on This Week in Startup for Thursday is going to be what? Today's news show will be paired with Packy McCormick. And so tell everybody a little bit about that. And then amazing guest. Yes, he was on yesterday. I taped that yesterday. So just so you know how we work here, there's 3 full-time producers, Nick, Justin, and Rachel. And then there's Sir Charles. And then we're adding another producer editor. So we're going to have 5 full-time people on the show. They also do All In. More people commenting on my haircut. Thank you for noticing. My wife doesn't notice, but y'all notice, which makes sense because you watch the podcast and she doesn't. And Shelly is asking on LinkedIn, can the producer put a kit? Yes, we have a Notion page, I think, with my kit. So I think we can put that in the chat room. And then I would like to have Rachel, Nick, and Justin say hi for whatever account they're looking at. I think one of you's on LinkedIn, one's on YouTube, and one's on Twitter Periscope. So go ahead and say hi. And I see that on the YouTube channel, they put this notion. So I don't know how many people are watching on YouTube, but my team, I'd like you to just give me every time we break, 10 or 20, if we're at 50, tell me 50. If we're at 60, tell me 60, 70, tell me 70, whatever it is. And if you can just give me updates every couple of minutes on how many people we have on each one. So Paul tells me we're at 56 on YouTube. If we get to, so I'll take one question from YouTube. If it gets to 75 on YouTube, I'll take a second question from the YouTube audience. So, and if you want to like and thumbs up and follow the channel, and when you go to the channel page, youtube.com/thisweekin, if you hit the little bell there, you'll get alerts when I go live. And I think that's kind of cool. So please go ahead and thumbs up, smash the thumbs up, as they say in the biz. If you smash the thumbs up, I'll take more questions at the end. So that's how we do it here. LinkedIn is streaming well. That's great. A LinkedIn user told me that. You'll be better looking than Harrison Ford. I don't think so, but I'll try. I'm very committed to my health and to not having a comb over. So I'm working on both of those things, lest anybody be concerned about these two things. You guys are funny. Okay. Thank you for smashing and killing the like button. That means a lot. All right. So we'll do some Q&A at the end. I'll take your questions at the end. I'm going to tape the news now. And so what you'll hear is the actual way I will do the news. And you might hear pauses in here where I ask my research team in real time to clarify something or to look up a fact. So this is sort of like watching, not CNN because they just go live. This is like watching a news program that's going to go live in a couple of hours. Okay, here we go. 3, 2. Okay, our first story today is a unicorn SaaS startup called Headspin has been accused of massive fraud by the SEC and the DOJ. This is an amazing story. Headspin's co-founder and former CEO, Manish Lakhwani, was arrested yesterday on charges of securities and wire fraud, according to the DOJ press release. The charges and arrests stemmed from an investigation by the DOJ and SEC after Lakhwani allegedly defrauded investors out of $80 million, according to the SEC complaint. Now, we'll get into what that fraud was, and did he get that 80 million or did he get other benefits? And that is a key here, I think, when you look at these fraud cases is, sometimes there's a fraud where it's a Ponzi scheme and the person is sweeping the cash. Other times it's founders who get ahead of their skis and maybe they get themselves in trouble or they're delusional. We'll see what happens in the Theranos case, which I think was supposed to start in August, but it's starting in September. And John Carreyrou, who was on this podcast, right after he did the first story for the Theranos investigation into Elizabeth Holmes, is going to be covering it live on a new podcast. So I am going to try to have John Carreyrou on this podcast, and obviously we'll be covering the Theranos trial as well. So just real quick here about Headspin. They charge a SaaS fee, software as a service, to help optimize mobile app performance metrics like reducing in-app load times, increasing the speed of development cycles, etc. This seems like a pretty reasonable idea for a business, and apparently they did make money and they had a certain number of customers using it. They have 3 pricing tiers, $50 a month, $200 a month, and some custom enterprise tier. Okay, this all sounds good. Sounds like a company I might invest in. And according to PitchBook, which is a cool database run by a friend of mine, John Gabbert, who started it. We knew each other from the Venture Source days. He ran Venture Source back in the day and had sold one of my companies to Dow Jones. PitchBook says Headspin has raised over $90 million from investors between 2015 and 2020. Their data is generally right on. Sometimes they'll be missing a round or two because not all this data is available, but it's private company data. They do a really good job over PitchBook. So in February of 2020, Headspin closed their $60 million Series C, and this valued them at $1.1 billion. They had a bunch of notable investors in this, including Tiger Global, which people have been talking about is throwing cash at later stage SaaS software companies. Some people are a little bit upset about that, maybe thinking they're not as thoughtful as they should be, and that Tiger is just splashy, cashy, throwing money everywhere. Iconic is also in this round, GV, which is, I think, Google Ventures, and then Dell Technology Capital. And that was their Series C. Now, it was the fundraising of this round where Lakhwani got himself into hot water, according to the SEC complaint. And I'll read from the complaint right now. From at least 2018 through 2020, Lakhwani engaged in a fraudulent scheme to propel Headspin's valuation to over $1 billion by falsely inflating the company's key financial metrics and doctoring its internal sales records. Okay, that last part is critical. They must have him dead to rights that he actually changed documents. Now, this is where even doing diligence, if somebody doctors records, you might think, I'm doing pretty good diligence here. I looked at their sales numbers and they look good. Well, what if they change? What if they went into a spreadsheet? What if they went into a bank statement or, Stripe account or whatever, took a screenshot and then actually changed the numbers? That is what I hear. There was some changing of internal documents to raise money. According to the DOJ release, quote, in materials and presentations to potential investors, Lakhwani reported false revenue and overstated key financial metrics of the company. When they say materials and presentations, they're meaning the startup's deck and probably these or due diligence documents. So when you sell securities, stock in your company, and you change and you lie about your metrics, what you're doing is called securities fraud, and it is deadly serious. So here is what he's allegedly, here's what they allege he did in terms of cooking the books. And this is a quote. He was instructing employees to include revenue from potential customers that inquired but did not engage Headspin. Okay, so that would typically be called your pipeline. And I've seen this before in decks, and I've literally instructed my founders, please, with the pipeline, nobody cares about your goddamn pipeline. Talk about reality. We all understand you have some pipeline, but people like to get obsessed with the pipeline because it's a precursor to actual revenue. In other words, the targets your sales team tell you they have, who they're engaging, who they've emailed, it really means nothing. Continuing the quote, from past customers who no longer did business with Headspin and from existing customers whose business was far less than reported revenue. In other words, this idiot, criminal, moron was lying 3 different ways. At least that's how they caught him. So he was telling people that the pipeline was actual revenue, that past customers who churned did not churn, and that existing customers were spending more money than they were. So think about those 3 things. That sounds like, to me, a very deliberate scheme. Remember, I just told you to be careful with ARR on yesterday's show. And, you really do need to be careful that when you present information, you present reality. That's why I like, here's our revenue from the last 3 months. That is so indicative of where you are as a business. Anything other than the last 3 months revenue, 3 different numbers. We were at 100K, we went to 120, and then we went to 142, whatever it is. Just be straightforward. When you start putting in your projections and you start putting in your pipeline, or you start talking about, at the same rate, we'll hit this amount at this pace, forget all that. Just tell the truth. Investors are mature enough to understand the truth and where that could lead. We understand that companies can grow double digits and double every 3 to 6 months. That's why we're in the business. You don't need to lie. You need to just present reality. So here's another quote. Lakhwani provided investors false information that overstated Headspin's annual reoccurring revenue, ARR, by approximately, wait for it, folks, $51 to $55 million. This was not a tiny exaggeration. This was a colossal exaggeration. So how did it all happen? According to the SEC complaint, Lakhwani's fraud was unraveled after the company's board of directors conducted an internal investigation that revealed significant issues with Headspin's reporting of customer deals and revised Headspin's valuation from $1.1 billion to $300 million. In other words, the board caught him at some point and then lowered the valuation. Now, what happened here and how the board caught this? That's actually the question I have. I have 2 theories. One is uh, somebody who's on the board did math. When you're on a board of directors, you're kind of can zone out. The product is being shown. Here's our hires, here's our projections, and here's our revenue. You just assume the person you're working with is telling you the truth. What I do when I see these numbers is I do math. I say, hey, what was the revenue last month? And I just want to see if the founder actually knows that. And then I asked them, what was it in January and what was it in the January before that? And I like to have founders who know their numbers crisp enough to do that, or have them at their fingertips to look them up. And then I'll say, what did we spend that month? They tell me what we spent. And then I look at it. Okay, so we had 10 million in cash. We're burning 150 a month. We've been burning 150 a month for 10 months. We started the year with 10 million. So we have 8.5 million in cash, but I see here we have 6 million in cash. What's the difference? And then they'll say, oh, that revenue is future looking. Oh, we had this one-time expense. Oh, we bought this company. You get the idea. So just somebody on the board doing basic math might have figured this out, that something was wrong by comparing one set of information to another. The second thing is, and the more likely thing is, somebody who works at the company emailed a board member and said, or called them or DM'd them and said, hey, listen, I was asked to do X, Y, and Z. Then the board, because they have a fiduciary responsibility and they could be legally liable. And this is why you always get directors insurance, because now this is going to result in lawsuits because you have criminal activity. It makes the lawsuits that much easier. If you remember when O.J. Simpson got, even though he had a criminal case that he got off on, he was guilty in the civil case, right? So the civil cases typically come after the criminal one. So here's the criminal, they'll be civil, I would guess. An audit conducted in mid-2020 found that Headspin's total cumulative revenue from inception, not this year, from inception through the first half of 2020 was only 26 million instead of the 95 million they reported to investors. So this is a big, big gap. Lakhwani didn't forget, allegedly to wet his own beak either. In the SEC complaint, Lakhwani enriched himself by selling 2.5 million of his Headspin shares in a fundraising round, during which he made misrepresentations to existing Headspace investors. So take a pause there. He sold secondary. When you are selling secondary, now you're taking chips off the table and you're lying and raising money. This goes beyond like, I was just trying to help the company or whatever ridiculous claim this idiot's going to have for his illegal behavior. Now it gets a little bit deeper. He actually swept chips off the table. So you got to be very careful when you do that, because that means he's taking those investors' money and putting it into the company. Yes, that's the primary raise, but then he did a secondary transaction, apparently, and how that would typically go, although I don't know in this case, how that would typically go is he, in fact, sells his common shares directly to those investors, right? So he would sell directly to Tiger or Iconic in this case, and they would pay him, and then the company would record on their cap table, these 2.5 million common shares owned by the founder go to this person, boop, and they move over, whether they're using, cap table software or they're doing it on an old spreadsheet, like many people do. If he's convicted of securities fraud, Lakhwani faces 20 years and a $5 million fine. That's a max sentence. And if he's found guilty of wire fraud, he faces a max sentence of 20 years to a fine of $250. I bet you he gets 5 to 10. Feels like a 5 to 10 type of situation in low security. Maybe he gets off in 4 to 7. Who knows? People tend to let these white collar criminals out early, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. If you went into a department store and stole $5,000 worth of merchandise or $2,000, I bet you get less than or the same as this cat who sold 2.5 million of his shares. Ilya Sukhar, a general partner at Matrix Partners and angel investor in Headspin, had a pretty funny tweet. Not my best angel investment, not my worst either, but one of the best learning experiences. And he literally posts the Justice Department's, the Department of Justice's, PDF case on it. So I have had, my producers asked me in the notes here if I've ever had these kind of experiences. I've had people do their books wrong, but never intentionally. So I've had people make mistakes in their books, but not intentional mistakes. I have had people do self-dealing where they gave themselves extra shares in a company. I've had people pay for their apartment or give themselves a $50,000 or $100,000 wire to cover expenses, not pay taxes on it. And, that stuff could be looked at as bad hygiene or bad judgment, expenses that would not pass mustard. And so in those cases, you basically try to clean them up. You do a little investigation, and you either have to fire the executive or sanction them in some way. And it's just messy. So don't ever do anything that's not approved by your lawyers and accountants. For example, don't pay yourself a $3,000 draw. That's not a financial concept, according to the IRS or the Department of Justice or anybody. Just pay yourself a salary, and don't pay for your apartment, and your, vacation. You have to use common sense here. If you have an office in your house and you talk to your accountants and they say, yeah, it's 20% of your, living space and it's dedicated for that. Yeah, you can deduct that or something, or you can charge the company, but just be super clear about it. What I do is anytime I have these is I have a CFO in the company actually document it, and I have them be super careful about it. Okay. All right. So that, as an example, is our first story. And I think I read that one through. I don't think there's any pickups. So now I would ask my producers, any pickups? Is there anything I missed? And then hopefully they'll come on air here and you'll get to meet one of our producers. So producer Nick, you want to come on air for a second? And I think you should be able to see him. Okay. So do you guys on LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube here, Nick?
They should hear me.
If you do. Yeah. I'm just asking them. So I say,
I do have one pickup for you.
Okay. What is the pickup?
So under the bullet point that I'm hovering over, you called Headspin Headspace.
Oh,
not
Headspace is a competitor to Calm, so I didn't want to take a shot at them here. No, that's good. So this is now you see how the sausage was made. If this was live TV, I wouldn't have a chance to fix this. So you want me to read the whole quote or the second half of it? Where do you want me to pick it up from?
The whole quote where you said Headspace. Audit conducted.
Okay. 3, 2. An audit conducted in mid-2020 found that Headspin's total cumulative revenue from inception through the first half of 2020 was only about $26 million instead of the $95 million they reported to investors, according to the DOJ release. Clip. Now you know how I do this. Math, not meth. Sounds good. Baba Booey. You guys are funny in the comments. I can't watch these comments while I'm doing the news. All right. Should we do the next story now? Or do you have more than you need? That was 12 minutes, I think. Want me to do the other story? Nick?
Jason, Charles here.
Hey, Charles.
It's my opinion that you got that. We were around 13 minutes, I guess.
Okay.
The only thing
we want to do the Picasa now because I have energy and we have everybody on live and you could bank it for tomorrow.
That's a question for Nick, yeah.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is the comment about meth, not math, is because when you were saying math earlier, it sounded a little like meth. And so you were like, oh, I do meth. There was confusion.
I do meth, not math. That's pretty funny. Okay, sorry while I blow my nose. You can cut that out of the show too. All right, here we go. Second story. 3, and I'll do questions from each of the channels in a minute. 3, 2. Okay, an innovative real estate startup offering fractional ownership of vacation homes is causing outrage in Sonoma and Napa. And I'm really interested in this company. I thought it was a brilliant idea. Before we go into the crazy neighbors, let's first understand Picaso's startup and how they work. It's spelled Pacaso. I found out about it because I was listening to Stay Tuned with Preet and some other, highbrow left-wing podcast. And I put together that they were doing this advertising to really high-end, affluent people on the left, in all likelihood, like people in cities, and that they were also getting dogged in the press, and this big NPR story was out. So I thought that was kind of ironic, and I looked into it, and I found out the backstory here. So Picaso was founded in October of 2020, according to my notes here, by 2 former Zillow executives, Austin Allison and Spencer Raskoff, if I'm hopefully pronouncing his name correctly. And I actually did invite him on the podcast before I knew about this brouhaha, this Donnybrook. Their main objective is to make second home ownership, i.e. vacation homes, more accessible by utilizing a fractional home ownership model, according to NPR and their website. It's sort of like time sharing, but very different. So in time sharing, you pay a company that owns the asset. They give you 2 weeks. Everybody knows timeshares. It's kind of a scam. Feels a little multi-level marketing, boiler room. In this case, when you work on Picasso, you pick 5 of your friends, like say 5 other families or 8 other families, and you each buy 1/8 share in a Picasso home. And you can pick the home you want, or I think Picasso has some of the homes, listed, and you can join in and jump in with a different group of people. So, the owners are investors. They're not renters. It's not a vacation home. It's not an Airbnb. It's not essentially a hotel. It's just a group of people who own a home together in the form of an LLC. So Picasso will buy the home, they refurbish it, they make it nice, they do the interior decoration, and they create an LLC. And then the ownership is divided into 8 equal fractions, and they sell it. So you are charged 12% of the initial purchase price along with some monthly fees. And then you have to hold on to your shares for at least a year, and you can sell it after that point. And you then can stay 44 days a year, but only 14 consecutive days. And you have the ability to access an app. You can access an app, and that helps you with the logistics of booking. So if you did this with 8 people and you worked with 4 of them, and 4 of them were another one of your friends, family members, everybody gets to stay, and you can gift the space to other people. So if I had an 8th in a ski place in Tahoe, I could allow my brother or my nephew or a coworker to stay there, which is kind of cool. If you divide 365 days a year by 8, that's 45.6. So the math here checks out. And then what's key is Picasso oversees the property management, maintenance, and I believe the cleaning of the property. So if you were to do this with your friends randomly, somebody out of the 8 people would have to take the burden of doing all this. So essentially, Picasso is not the equity owner. They are a service that does all this management for you. I think you pay them an upfront fee to set all this up, and then they make a little bit of money managing it for you. So I love this model. I think it's brilliant. Why is it brilliant? We have a supply problem, and second homes don't get used that much. So if you have a second home, you wind up either not using it and having this massive expense and feeling like an idiot because you use it for 30 days a year, 20 days a year, 40 days a year. And then the rest of the time, nobody's in it and you're paying all those expenses and it's breaking down and nobody's maintaining it. So you could have stayed, at some incredible hotel for the same amount of money. Here, you get to have 44 days and you have no overhead and you have ownership. So you're not throwing the money away. Now, here's where it gets interesting. According to NPR, Picasso claims to be the fastest American company to receive unicorn status, something that seems to be important to founders these days in the market. According to Picasso CEO Austin Allison's LinkedIn, the company was founded in February of 2020. 11 months later, in March of 2021, they closed their Series B, which valued them at $1 billion. So obviously housing is hot. Obviously the overall market is hot. Obviously these are Zillow executives. That would lead to a crazy funding moment. And it seems like they've raised $341 million so far, including VC money and some amount of venture debt. And, vacation rentals were absurdly priced this year because of people coming back from the pandemic. Who knows what the long-term, situation will be given the never-ending pandemic. But there has been some controversy here, and where else but in wine country. So it turns out homeowners in Sonoma County saw a drone flying around their house. And after talking to their neighbors, it would discover that a home in the neighborhood would be turned into an LLC after being sold to Picasso. So they denied operating the drone to film the neighborhood, but they basically claim they bought the photos after the fact. That seems to me like a little bit of revisionist history or splitting hairs. If they flew the drone or somebody flew it on behalf of them, it's basically the same thing. They wanted aerial photos of the house in question for their website, which, okay, who cares? If they're buying the house or it's their house, they can fly a drone over it. I mean, this sounds like some weird claim that Picasso is creepy or spying on people. But the fact is, every time I look at Zillow or my preferred site, Redfin, what I think Redfin's a better site, their interface. But when I look at those sites, it is they always have flyovers, and it makes it wonderful to do that. And you're allowed to fly drones over your own property. So I don't know what the issue there is. There have even been posts made to neighbors.com from the homeowners that mentioned the article who posted about a fundraiser to keep Picasso out. So there is this brouhaha starting where people don't want to have obviously Airbnbs next to their homes. They don't want a rotating group of guests. I understand that. If I lived in a community and there was a party going on next door, yes, that would be annoying if they had a party house. But Airbnb doesn't allow parties anymore, except on the margins. And I think they are pretty strict about that. The number, and I operated an Airbnb for a little bit at a former house I had, which is a very interesting experience. Airbnb is a pretty cool site. We did have somebody break the rules and throw a party. That was annoying. Police got called, all that kind of stuff, because I live in a very, I live in a neighborhood with old people who will call the police for anything. And so this NPR article mentioned that they just didn't like the sense of, destroying their neighborhood. And so here is the quote, that it would destroy their sense of community and turn their neighborhood into adult Disneyland. Well, you know what? I'd be totally honest with you. I don't think you have a leg to stand on here, NIMBY people in Sonoma. I know you want every single home to be somebody living there and to not be rented out, but you live in America where people have property rights and they get to do what they want with their home within reason. Now, they can't throw a 24-hour party and infringe on you, but how does it infringe on you that it's a second home that 8 people own and only one of them there is at a time? The NPR article also mentioned that homeowners had concerns around increased wildfires and drought risk. I don't know what that means. Noise and traffic. Okay. I mean, calm down, people. It's just a vacation home. So they formed an organization opposing Picasso, created an anti-Picasso website, and also circulated a petition, according to the article. On neighbors.com, you can actually see a post, someone giving out free Stop Picasso lawn signs. So these are people with far too much time on their hands. And I think really it's kind of short-term, it's kind of long-term dumb, because if you are an owner and these Picasso homes work out, it's going to drive homes up in value, because you're going to have a larger number of people who can afford a second home. If you have to pay, if you only have to pay 1/8 the price of a home, you might actually consider it when you wouldn't, or it might be you might consider this like on top of your second home. So maybe you have a condo in ski country, in some ski place, and you got this one, because you're going to use it 2 weeks a year or whatever. So it's kind of silly. I would love to buy a Picasso home or use this software to manage it. Or I was just thinking, like, I could start an LLC myself, buy some piece of property in Tuscany, where I just got back from Italy, and share it with 10 friends, and we all use it 2 weeks a year, or maybe 3 weeks a year. It'd be amazing. And then you could even put it into an Airbnb pool on top of that. So I think this is a great idea. I feel really bad that I missed this. And I think somebody should create a competitor to Picasso that just provides the software to people and lets them do it. So, or matches people together like a marketplace, because this seems like a really viable idea. I love this idea because it is more efficient. Just like Ubers allowed people to use cars that were sitting in garages for 96% of their lives, and they used them for another 30% of the time. That's good for society. You don't have to make as many cars. That's better. And if somebody can use their personal car for deliveries, we don't have to have as many delivery vans, etc. So this efficiency of on-demand and fractional ownership is good for society, especially since in this society, we are not building enough homes. And we have more affluent people who have made more money in the stock market who are buying up all the second and third homes. I have friends who have 3, 4 homes and they don't use them. And that's really wasteful. Okay. 3-2. In a different instance, Picasso bought a Napa home located 2 blocks from a high school for $1.13 million, 35% higher than the other median home prices, according to NPR. That I'm not sure if that's valid. We don't know if that home was worth 35% more. Maybe it had a pool or whatever. So, when you get these journalists covering a story, when they're using the median home price, the fact that it's 35% higher than the average price means nothing. I don't know what they're trying to say there, that they overpaid or something. The NPR article also reported that Picasso says they only buy luxury homes and they don't compete with local middle-class families in the housing market. Okay, so here we go. Now you're talking about, oh my God, is this taking away housing supply from other people? In a way, yes. If you put all housing into one bucket, if you take one house off the market for a second homeowner, yes, that is bad for the overall inventory. However, if 5 people were going to buy 5 homes there, and now they bought one and they share it, or 8 people, that's better because you keep more homes in the market, because nobody needs a second home for more than 44 days a year. It's by definition, it's a second home. So NPR reported, quote, some Napians, is that how you pronounce Napians? How do you pronounce residents of Napa, Nick? How would you pronounce Napa? Some Nappins. I've never heard that before. N-A-P-A-N.
They should get a new moniker. That's tough.
It's a good moniker, Nappins. So some Nappins were pissed. Picasso says the house was the victim of trespassing and illegal signage. Picasso even claims it had to file a police report after a local wrote to the company and said, I will burn down any home you buy in Napa. This is not a joke. Man, NIMBY people are pissed. They could also be found being very vocal on the Twitter. And we'll pull that up here. If you're watching on YouTube, go to youtube.com/thisweekin and follow the channel, and then hit that little alert bell, and you'll get to watch these live from time to time when I read the news live for the audience. Picasso ended up selling the house to a normal home buyer and, quote, pledged to beef up its owner code of conduct to include decibel limits on all home sound systems, create a local liaison dedicated to assisting neighbors, not buy any homes in the area under 2 million, and for each house sold in Napa and Sonoma counties, donate $20,000 to a local nonprofit dedicated to affordable housing, according to NPR. You know what I would have told everybody? I would have told them to pound salt. Like, just worry about yourself. You people are ridiculous, Napins. Just drink some wine and chill out. Like, you don't get to tell people what they can do in their home and how many people can buy it. You're being ridiculous. You've gone way too far. You're being super NIMBYs. This is uber NIMBYism. So Picasso, I think you should ignore these idiots. It's just ridiculous. And they're not timeshares. Everybody knows timeshares. The ownership is owned by the company, which is then renting time. This is fractional ownership in an LLC. Sorry. If big companies can do it, if people are already doing it, you can do it too. So for the NIMBYs in wine country, I know it's not everybody. You're being ridiculous, and maybe you should just do it with your house, or maybe you should buy one of these and make your own competitor to Picasso. It is a great idea. I'm not an investor, wish I was. And if somebody makes a competing startup or has a way to best this idea, I'm open to investing. It's a great idea. Okay, let's move on. All right. Okay. So I think I did everything. Any pickups, guys, gals? Pickups?
That story was good for me. Do you want to do the intro?
Rachel, this was your story? Rachel, this was your story?
Yes.
Okay. That's Rachel, everybody. Producer Rachel. And producer Rachel is going to be doing she's going to be doing some Gen Z reporting for us. Tell everybody about your first story.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it. I got to interview one of my favorite people on TikTok. He runs the Morning Brews TikTok, so excited for you guys to hear more about that.
When are we doing that? We're going to have our first correspondent. You're our first correspondent. When will we be running that, Rachel?
Tuesday.
Oh, that's Nick. Okay. So Tuesday you can look forward to on the show that, and then Friday we are taping the All In podcast. Okay. So let's take your questions. If you have a question, can I get a count? How many people are watching on the YouTube, Nick? How many people are watching on LinkedIn? How many people are watching on Twitter?
175 on YouTube.
175 on YouTube. Then we start with YouTube. And what I'll say on YouTube is, yeah, wow, look at that. We have 66 people who've liked it and 173 people watching. Everybody smash the thumbs up button for your boy, J Cal. And if we can get that up to 75, I will take a second question, but I'll take my first YouTube question right now. If we get it to 75, I will do another YouTube question. So what is my first question, Nick? And go ahead and smash the thumbs up, everybody. Nick, do you want to pick the question or you want me to pick it?
I did not have one prepared, but I could look through it real quick.
Okay. So who's monitoring YouTube? Is that you, Nick?
Oh, I like this one. How do you, Chamath, Sachs, and Friedberg differ in your approach for choosing startups to invest in? Maybe explain the differences between your funds and what Friedberg's doing.
Okay, I don't see that question, but can you put that up on the screen, Charles, so people can see it? Is it in the comments or it's in the chat? Right, it's in the chat. We don't have comments.
YouTube chat.
I'm working on that. I'm just
okay.
trying to find it.
What timestamp is it, Nick? Or how far back is it for Charles to go? Who asked?
Looks like I can't scroll up or down the chat section.
The
question was asked by Jacob Garoff.
Okay, so you can do it on. Yeah, I see it. Charles, do you see it? Jacob Garoff. It's like 2 pages back on YouTube. So you can't scroll backwards, Nick, on this Restream Studio, but you can if you have the YouTube window open. I would suggest you keep the YouTube window open. Then he can pull it up. Charles, let us know when you get the Jacob one. I want to answer it when you pull it up on the screen so that we can clip this and use it on the pod. Does that make sense? I think that's a good idea or not? What do we think?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. All right. And then on LinkedIn, who's watching the LinkedIn stream?
Justin. That would be me, Justin.
Okay, Justin, have you picked the best question from LinkedIn, and how many people are watching on LinkedIn right now?
We're at 33 right now.
Perfect. Okay. And does it have commenting underneath it, or do they use chat on there?
It's somewhat of a hybrid. It's comments that will stay with the video after it's done, but it looks kind of like a chat window.
How does one find the streaming video, by the way, on
I found it through LinkedIn. A notification. We got some more research to do.
It's on my, if you go to my profile page, linkedin.com/in/Jason Calacanis, it put it on my live profile page. You have to see this, guys. It is so cool. The feed is live as my banner. Do you see that, Nick?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's nice.
So then if you click it, it goes live. Oh my God, they copied the YouTube page. All right, so on this page, we do have, I don't see where we have how many people are live. Oh, maybe, yeah. So we got a bunch of reactions. That is really good. Okay, so I'll do my first question here. How do Chamath, Yu, Sachs, and Friedberg differ in their approach to choosing startups to invest in? It's a great question. Chamath is primarily doing very late stage pre-IPO companies to SPAC them. That means he's picking companies that have, in almost all cases, a very robust, established business model and revenue stream. They might have years of revenue. In some cases, it might be something like Virgin Galactic that's a bit more speculative and early stage and big tech. I think Chamath is also, because he has been so successful, is looking for things that are world changing and not, simple. He wants to do things that have a big impact in the world. Sachs is focused on 2 sectors, SaaS and marketplaces. So he cares about software as a service and marketplaces. And he tends to do it when those companies have a couple of months to a couple of years of data, but maybe not as much as Chamath taking companies public. So think Series A, seed and Series A. And Friedberg is a completely different beast. He might invest in a friend's company here and there on the margins, but he is actually creating companies in a studio system, which means he hires a group of people. They try a bunch of different ideas. When one of them starts to get traction, they spin it out, get additional investors, and staff it. And that is the studio model. I have an accelerator like Y Combinator and Techstars called Launch Accelerator. Then I will do seed rounds, which are typically 500K to 3 million. We will lead those rounds, and then we will co-lead Series A's from time to time as well. And we have a syndicate. So mechanically, we have a fund and a syndicate. Mechanically, Chamath is doing public equities. Mechanically, Sachs is doing a fund, and then mechanically, Friedberg is doing a studio system. So there's the mechanics of how you do the financing, and then there is the stage and the vertical. So I think I answered both those questions pretty well. What's our LinkedIn question?
Oh, you said you were going to do another YouTube if you got 75.
Okay. I did get to 75. I'll do one more. We're at 96 now. So if we get to 110 on the thumbs up, I will do another YouTube question. So we're at 96, and I see a YouTube question. When should a SaaS startup start planning on profitability as opposed to just ARR growth? Pre-IPO, asking because I am invested in one of your very fast-growing SaaS companies. Okay. Most early stage private market investors and even late stage are not looking for profitability. They're looking for growth. So if you could be growing, let's say 30% year over year and be break even to modestly profitable, most people would say you're doing it wrong as a private company. If you had the opportunity to lose, millions of dollars, but grow at 100%. Why? Why would you take losing money, but having growth over being profitable and having, 2/3 less growth? Because you're capturing market share. So if you believe the market is important, like Uber did or Calm did, you might, or Airbnb did, you might be okay losing money as you build up that base of users and you build up that base of inventory if it's a marketplace, or you build, features to your product to make it more sticky. So we're in the high growth business because we're not trying to get a dividend. I've only had one company in 350 want to pay a dividend. And I was like, please don't give us money. Invest it back in the business and growth. And they're like, no, we want to take a dividend. And I was like, okay, fine. we didn't want to be in a dividend business, but here we are, we're in one. So that is a way to think about it. You don't, and I'm glad you're in. I think I know which SaaS company you're in, but we have two SaaS companies that have become worth hundreds of millions of dollars coming out of the accelerator and then going on to the syndicate. And I'm super thrilled that we're sharing that deal flow with folks. Okay, we got to 106 on YouTube, 4 more thumbs up on the page, and we'll do another question from YouTube. But for now, we'll go to our first LinkedIn question. Can I get the LinkedIn question from producer Justin? And he says, what is your personal investment strategy as it relates to climate crisis solutions? I don't have one. However, I am an LP, a small one in Chris Sacca's oversubscribed lower carbon fund. So my bet is to bet on Chris and to learn there. And I think that's, he's dedicated himself to it. We've got a longstanding friendship. If I put a little bit of chips behind him, I'll probably get a return. He's really good at what he does. Even if I lose the money, I think it's better spent than giving it to charity, because I think entrepreneurs do a better job of solving problems than charities. No offense to people working in the private sector, but I do think getting rich and running your own company just results in better outcomes than the nonprofit world in most cases. I wouldn't say all. There might be some nonprofits that do a great job and they do a better job than for-profit companies. But a for-profit company working on housing, and they figure out a way to build houses, twice as fast for half as much money, and they target the high end, eventually that creates inventory. And then that creates more inventory for other people on the low end as one example. So I would rather invest in a company that's making ADUs or high-end homes and then have them create more inventory. Then that helps lower-end homes, or the technology trickles its way down. So I have the 16th Tesla ever made, the 16th Roadster, and that car cost me $160,000. I think it got devalued down to $30,000 or $40,000, maybe 6 or 7 years after I bought it. So I looked like an idiot. But the bet I was making there buying that was that Elon could take our money for the Roadsters and put it to good use. And then maybe someday he'd have a $50,000, $40,000, or $30,000 car. And here we are. And supposedly there's a Model 4 coming that's going to be $25,000. So instead of me donating money to charity, I paid for a sports car that was $160,000, and now actually it's probably worth $250,000 because it's went through the J curve. Now it's a collector's edition, so it's probably worth twice as much as what I paid for it. Maybe it's worth $300,000. But I made that bet because 1, I wanted the car. 2, I wanted to support my friend, and 3, I thought that this would actually have a profound impact down the road, and I was proven correct. So the people who put solar on their homes 20 years ago made it super cheap for people today. People who bought Teslas 12 years ago, are basically making an investment in this. And I think the same holds true for people who are investing in things like Beyond Meat. Whether you're buying, an Impossible Burger, when they came out, I think at Umami Burger, they were charging $16 for an Impossible Burger. That's you betting on that company and then betting on the trickle down nature of technology. Now, trickle down might not work in the tax world. It works brilliantly in the world of technology. You buying a smartphone for $1,200 makes the $100 one possible. You buying broadband, 30 years ago, 25 years ago for $5,000 a month for your T1 line makes it $15 a month for people to have in the developing world Wi-Fi now. So that's my approach. I could be wrong. Okay, it looks like, okay, now, did we get any questions on the Periscope and who's monitoring the Periscope / Twitter? And how would I find that? Is it just live streaming on Twitter? Is that where you find it? Twitter.com/Jason?
I am on Periscope, yeah.
Oh, wow, there it is. Look. So we have 26 viewers there. If people have a question, just reply. Oh, look, Danny Fortson from Danny in the Valley wrote a question. And should we take that
one? We got to go soon. You have an onboarding call in 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll take this. I'll take Danny's as the last one then. So can you pull Danny's up? That would be great. And I don't see Danny's yet. Danny's is a Twitter reply. Is it possible to pull that up, Sir Charles?
Yes. Could you tell me what the question is? Because
it's a reply to the Periscope tweet. So if you go to twitter.com/Jason, you'll see the tweet. There's 2 replies to it. And
what is his question?
Says, are you seeing investors not do due diligence on stuff like this?
Okay, I'm searching through now.
Yeah. And it's from Danny. So you just do a search for Danny. You'll find it pretty quick. He did that at 11:11. So he did it half an hour ago. But I think it's a good question. And I'll just answer it right now since I got to get off. All right, 3, 2. Okay, so Danny in the Valley, Danny Fortson asks on Twitter, are you seeing investors not doing due diligence on stuff like this? How possible is it to actually vet this stuff in startups? Great question from Danny about our first news story on August 26th, which was the Headspin founder being accused of a massive fraud by the SEC and DOJ. So when you do due diligence, you will typically ask for a series of documents. Incorporation is one. Okay, check. This is an actual company registered in Delaware. Okay, you might do a background check on the founders. Have they had a felony? And it's kind of a light background check. Then you will ask for bank statements. You might ask for statements from Stripe. You might ask for statements from the iTunes account so you can see the number of downloads. And in this case, some people probably invested without audit rights, which is a standard right, is you have the ability to audit. And that would give you the ability to correct this in the review mirror. We do diligence. We ask for all these documents. It is possible for a founder to do a very complex fraud, and we might not catch it. It is possible that people can commit crimes and they're not stopped. In this case, it did get stopped, so that's good, but it didn't get stopped until after the money was put in. So it sounds like these venture firms didn't do enough diligence, and they should have been talking to the CFO of this company. When you get to a company that has $50 million or claims to have that kind of revenue, 50 or 75 million, they should have a CFO. They should have an outside accounting firm. That outside accounting firm should have done an audit or should have at least had, P&Ls, and somebody should have talked to them. In a gangbusters environment like this, if you don't move quickly and you start asking for diligence and you slow down a deal, a founder might say, you know what, I'm just going to take the other money, and the person's not doing that level of diligence. It sounds crazy, but people will move quick and not do these kind of audits or, checks. We do them, but here's one example of how a fraud could happen. And then actually people have accused Tether of this, which is they have that moment where they have the attestation where they take a, look at how much money's in the bank account. Well, what if you took money from another bank account, put it in there, take the screenshot, and then you give the money back to the other bank account the next day? So, okay, you did in fact have money in the bank account on August 26th, But on August 24th and August 27th, you did not. You just moved money in there and you played a shell game. So some frauds are complex. Sometimes people will do really fugazi things, and other times, it's pretty easy to spot. In this case, they should have spotted it, and we do the best we can. And you want to do proportional due diligence. If the company's got $100,000 in yearly revenue, and they give you bank statements, okay, great. And you look at the bank statements. If they doctored the bank statements, or they moved money from their personal account into the bank thing and then took it back out and stole it, it's kind of like, okay, they committed fraud. You do have to a certain level, accept that you have to trust in people. But I believe trust but verify. How do you verify? You have audit rights, and you have a direct line to the CFO, controller, etc. And when you see those things not happening, which is why I think a lot of people assume Tether's a fraud, because they give the signals of a fraud by not doing an actual audit. How can somebody have $60 billion in capital and not do an audit? That makes no logical sense. People are suspending disbelief just like they did for, Bernie Madoff. The thing about Bernie Madoff was people were like, how could he have this consistent results? They're too consistent. He was doing like whatever it was, 12% a year in and year out. It was too perfect. He never had down years. He never had huge years. That makes no sense. But people suspended disbelief because I think they wanted to, get those returns, and didn't care that maybe it was fugazi. So sometimes people will turn a blind eye. Here, I think it was laziness, or the deal was closing quickly and people just assumed other people were doing diligence. I don't assume that. But you do want to make due diligence proportional to the state of the company, et cetera. Okay, that's a wrap, everybody. Thanks for doing this. I will see you next time. If you want us to do more of these, just let us know on Twitter, et cetera. And I think we'll leave this file up for now to my team. And then on YouTube, we have to make a decision. Do we want to leave raw files like this up or not when the show comes out? I don't know. Does anybody have a thought on that?
Yeah, I think we should take them down when the show comes out. Drive traffic to the episode.
Okay, sounds good to me. All right, and then you got 2 Ask or 3 Ask Jasons out of this as well, which is kind of cool.
We did.
And you just pick the best ones. All right, I'll see you all next time. Bye.